whether they're going to have mic problems again. Is that working? No? Yeah, okay, fine, I'll try and give it a go. Okay, thank you very much. And I was really pleased to be asked to stick around and speak as part of this panel as well. I guess I wanted to just say a few things about some of the work, some of the initiatives going on across prison and probation service to try and help tackle racism, try and build the kind of culture of professional standards that's true to our values. But also wanted just to reflect on what that means for the sort of leadership that we need as an organisation as well. And that's because I think that to drive the kind of progress that we all want to see, that we need a combination of management and leadership that's getting it right. And we need to galvanise a wider effort through the right sort of management and leadership so that we do have significant allyship across our service and that we drive the progress and that we, as the kind of the culture, professional standards that we aspire to is one that we all experience day in and day out. I think that the management part of it is about having processes that are effective, having managers that are competent to carry them out, and therefore that are seen to deal effectively with concerns when they're raised, and that therefore commands confidence amongst the staff group. But it also requires leadership, not just that management of that type of process. It requires quite brave leadership to drive the kind of changes that we need. And it also requires a leadership that's willing to deal with the misrepresentation and the misunderstanding that so often accompany courage. I guess it's worth sort of making sure that we're all starting from the same place in the sense of asking ourselves the question, do we have a problem as a service? To which my answer is unequivocally yes. And we've got plenty of evidence of that, whether that's from the inspectorate thematic, whether that's from staff surveys, whether that's looking at complaints, employment tribunals, and other staff engagement exercises, as well as the survey that we've done previously in combination with Napo and with the RISE staff network. And I know that, you know, in a way, nobody likes being told that their baby's ugly. But I think we have to face the fact that there is some ugliness in the behaviours and the outcomes that we have in our service, and that we need to face up to that. I think it's possible to be proud of the service that you work for without being in denial of its problems and its challenges. So the culture of professional standards is at the heart of what we aspire to, not least because that can become effectively self-perpetuating if we make progress with that in the way that everybody goes about their business. We can build an institutionalized professionalism, in effect. Some of the things that we've done in a managerial level that I just want to touch on. So we have set ourselves a number of national inclusion priorities. One of our big areas of focus is to have a more representative workforce. We've got a long way to go, and particularly in more senior levels. We're taking action in terms of sponsorship and positive action, lawful but bold positive action, to spot people from ethnic minorities across the organisation with talent, support them, sponsor them, enable their development, and mentor them, prepare them for progression, so that they will be able to move on to more senior positions and realise their potential. And for people who are on probation, another priority is reducing the gap that we have in accreditation programme starts and completions by ethnicity. We've got a restructured and smaller headquarters in HMPPS. We've established a professional standards and behaviours group. We have a race disparity unit within that group headquarters. We are investing in the effort to take forward our inclusion priorities. We're delivering a lot of training. Last year, more than 9,000 staff were reached by the unacceptable behaviour training sessions that we were delivering. Some years ago, we set up a tackling unacceptable behaviours unit in headquarters, and we are seeing its functions expand and its staff group expand to try and deal further with the challenges and make the progress, but also I think to respond to the increase in demand on some of those services. One of the things that we have is a confidential helpline through that unit. Last year it saw an increase in calls to it of 37%. We've created a larger team of trained mediators to help facilitate mediation in the workplace between people. Last year, that service saw an increase of 44% in the referrals to it. I don't think that we're seeing a problem that's getting bigger that explains the increase in referrals and phone calls. I think what we're seeing is a reduced tolerance of the behaviours, and I think we're seeing signs of an increase in confidence to challenge and to report those behaviours. But I think we've still got a long way to go, and I'll come back to that. We launched a new investigation service last December through the Tackling Unacceptable Behaviours unit as well, with qualified investigators outside the management line, and we've invested in expanding that team of investigators. They're carrying out climate assessments in PDUs, other probation teams and in prisons, looking at the culture and the experience of staff in those business units. And we've created a new behaviour intervention and practical support team to help leaders follow up on those climate assessments and develop action plans that can bring about meaningful change in response to what we're seeing. We've also tried to invest in other activities to help support people who've got potential, as I said, but also to raise the awareness of senior leaders. We've got 32 senior leaders across the organisation taking part in reverse mentoring, which we've been piloting with the first 16 of those senior leaders to enable ethnic minority staff and also ethnic minority people with lived experience of our system have reverse mentoring relationships with senior leaders in HMPPS, helping to raise their awareness and develop alternative perspectives. We've tried to mainstream our approach to inclusion following the race thematic inspection some years ago, making inclusion and diversity everybody's business. And we've also tried to encourage senior leaders in HMPPS to become inclusion champions for different protected characteristics, including race. In respect of race, the HMPPS race champions have come together with colleagues and with staff network and try to identify what are the main priorities we want to try and drive. And there's three main things that we're doing. One is that we're very focused on increasing the number of race allies across the organisation, building a critical mass of action-orientated allies. We're trying to reignite the allyship charter, increase awareness of it, communication about it, and indeed training for people to be effective allies. And we're aiming to increase the number of race allies by at least 15% by the end of March next year, which would give us 2,200 race allies across the whole organisation. We're seeking to increase the diversity and ethnic minority representation in some of our core committees and management boards at the centre of HMPPS, so that we get a greater diversity of thought and representation that way. And the third thing that as champions we're focused on is narrowing the gap in promotion rates between white and ethnic minority staff, which currently stands at 1.4%. We do want to spot, nurture, support talent into leadership, as I've said. The allyship focus is not a coincidence. We believe that allyship is really important across the organisation because of the signals it sends, but also the practical actions too. As I said, we're looking at action-orientated allies rather than passive allies. I think that for my own part as a leader, I felt that the allyship signal is very important. And I think that's the case across a range of protected characteristics, and partly because of my professional background in prisons and some of the particular issues that we've had historically and still have today in some of our prisons, that people have a strong sense of where I come from as a senior leader in the organisation. I think I was really quite humbled and proud when the RISE executive a couple of years ago asked me to become their senior sponsor. And they did that because of a level of confidence in my commitment based on my previous actions. And I wanted to be clear with all of our staff in ethnic minorities that as long as I've got a job, you've got an ally. This really matters, of course, and for three reasons, it seems to me. One, it's the law. We're part of the justice system, so upholding the law is fundamental, isn't it, to what we do. But we have a legal duty, not just to tackle discrimination, but also to promote equality. So there's a legal requirement on us. Secondly, there's a really good set of business reasons why this matters, because it enables us to be a better organisation if everyone can realise their potential. And if we treat people on probation, for example, equitably and fairly, and enable them to take advantage of all the opportunities we have to offer. And thirdly, there's a moral imperative, because of course it's right in itself and it reflects our values. And that speaks to the leadership that we need. We need a leadership across the organisation that is a moral compass rooted in our values, that reflects a relentless advocacy and modelling of the values, and that has the moral courage to tackle those who fail to live up to our values. The way that we deal with people on probation, and with all of our colleagues and our partners really matters. It must reflect the values and the professionalism, regardless of irrelevant factors like ethnicity. It must reflect the fact that we deal with everyone with fairness, integrity, respect, and humanity. And that must be evident in practical ways. And all levels of manager must have a strong understanding that as a leader, they're the guardian of the moral performance of their team. I wanted to share with you, just lastly, a statement of intent, really, and also position. It was something that I heard directly from a leadership consultant, John Amici, a year or so ago. And it's something that, as a sentiment and a statement of intent, something that I personally identified with, and that the leadership team of HMPPS identified with and wanted to associate ourselves with. What he described with this was an analogy. He asked people to think about a picture of two fields with a fence running down the middle of them. And that in one of the fields, there is racism, and there's sexism and misogyny and homophobia and transphobia and every hateful and discriminatory attitude and behaviour you can think of. And as leaders and as an individual in this organisation, I want to be clear that I'm not in that field. I'm not on the fence. I'm in the other field. But I'm not in the other field looking away from what's going on in that field. I'm in this field, and I'm not looking passively about what's going on in that field. I'm in this field, raining down fire on that field. And that's the determination that we need to have. I want us to have space for the people with good faith who lack awareness and make mistakes and can be clumsy. There's hope in that because they can learn and improve. But we must give no quarter to people whose attitudes and behaviours cross a line for us. They offend me, they offend our values, and they have no place in our organisation. And we need to have a determination to root them out in order to make progress. Thank you.